a lot of investors are a little bit worried currently, I think, due to the discussions about the tariffs. But I think currently there's an opportunity to look at the semiconductor space. In fact, a lot of the companies like Marvell, Micron, and AMD could potentially offer you a lot of value right now, even the likes of ASML, potentially even Nvidia. Although Nvidia's, let's say, downtrend compared to the others is a little bit less aggressive. As you can see that AMD, Micron and Marvell have lost much more over the past, let's say, 3 quarters. But I think currently there's a lot of much better value to be gained in the semiconductor space compared to, let's say, the August or September timeframe of 2024. But going specifically to AMD, I think Q1 is going to be a little bit less than Q4, obviously. They said that in the earnings, but that was something that we also talked about before the earnings, due to a little bit of a rumors that the data center GPU, so AI part of the data center for AMD, might possibly have a little bit of a less aggressive growth in the first half of this year, right? So due to that, we know that AMD is going to launch the MI300 in the second half of this year. I think they pulled it in a little bit, so it was expected to come late Q3. I would believe that we're gonna see it earlier in the Q3 actually, and we know that MI350 is gonna be more competitive on the inferencing side. And for you that are new to this market, you know that when everyone talks about AI, we are talking about inference and we are talking about the training of the models. Now, the training of the models is something that happens in the background, and this is where you see all these big data centers that the likes of Microsoft, Amazon, Google are investing in. But I think the bigger, long term, the bigger use case is actually in the inferencing phase. So inferencing phase is where you go to Grok or you go to ChatGPT or whatever that is and ask a question. Ask for, you prompt something, you ask like, can you please help me with this question? And that's where inferencing is going to be huge. And I think that's where AMD is going to gain a lot of market share as we go onwards. Also on the training side, due to the software stack of AMD being much stronger as we go onwards, I think they're also going to get like some traction there. But again, this first half is going to be a little bit slower. So my revenue for Q1 is around 7.3 billion. Add to it around half a billion in Q2. But I think there's going to be a substantial jump in Q3. I don't know if this is a little bit of a large of a jump, going from below 8 billion to above 10 billion, potentially. But I do think that embedded, the FPGA field programmer gate arrays that AMD, essentially the Xilinx business, is going to be stronger at the end of this year. But I don't still think we're going to enter like a huge bull market for FPGAs. But I think it's going to be a little bit stronger, like 10% or so. Not a huge thing, but still. Gaming is interesting. So gaming segment for AMD is essentially their Radeon GPUs and their Ryzen Z1 and Z2 Extreme for the handheld gaming market. Also the SoCs, the semi-custom SoCs for PlayStation 5 and Xbox, and as well some other like software and drivers. So when we look at that, they had a actually really bad second half of 2024 in the gaming segment. But in Q4 we saw a little bit of a rebound, and I think due to the launch of Radeon RX 9070 series GPUs, especially knowing that the competition, Nvidia, is not having a whole lot of a supply of their equivalent new 5000 series, I think that AMD is going to gain market share, and they're outselling Nvidia currently, I think. So when it comes to gaming side, the gaming GPUs, not on the laptop part, remember that a lot of people misunderstand this, that Nvidia has like 90% of the gaming GPU market, but they have a extreme dominance in the gaming GPU market on the laptop side. When it comes to the desktop DIY market, it's much more even. Still, Nvidia is dominant over the past 10 years, but I don't think we are talking 10 to 90%, right? We are maybe talking 70 to 30, maybe sometimes even 50-50. In fact, if you see some markets like in Germany, AMD is keeping outselling Nvidia on the biggest retailers on the gaming GPUs. So in any case, I think gaming is going to be stronger this year. Now, is the jump from Q2 numbers of 650 million to 1.2 billion realistic? I don't know. Maybe it's going to be closer to 900 million to 1 billion. But I think anyways that gaming is gonna be strong, FPGA is gonna be fairly strong. The client segment, I think we're gonna see a couple of quarters now in Q1 and Q2. It's gonna be a little bit down. Still historically very good numbers for AMD, but not to the extent of Q4 numbers of 2.3 billion, which was almost a record. I think actually was a record. And I think Q4 of next year, maybe I have to revise these two numbers here. I think Q4 of this year, due to the delays of Intel's successor to Luna Lake, which is going to come very late this year, potentially even slipping into 2026, early 2026. I actually think I have to revise these numbers, maybe to closer to 2.5 billion each. So this gives me a little bit of a headroom to add a little bit here on the client and remove a little bit on the gaming. Or in best case scenario, we see that both client and gaming are actually as strong, then we could see some upside to that. And then all comes down to the data center. Remember, AMD has their Instinct AI GPUs and EPYC Zen-based CPUs. Now, on the EPYC side, I believe AMD is on a slightly slower but much more steady market share gain. They're gaining market share from Intel, but they're at the same time facing competition from the likes of Marvell, as I mentioned before. Marvell Technologies making ARM-based server CPUs, right? And the likes of as well the hyperscalers like Amazon and Microsoft trying to even Google making their own CPUs as well. So it's a little bit like a complex situation, gaining somewhere, losing somewhere. So, but if you look at the bigger picture, I think AMD is gonna gain market share in the CPU side of the servers. Now for the AI GPUs, I've been hammering on this point. MI300 was just a first dip into the water of AI, right? I think MI300 is a mix of a AI GPU together with a high performance computing GPU, which means that it's not a pure play on the AI market. Now, it's technically a step to a pure play for sure, but it's not like Nvidia's H100, H200 in terms of purely razor sharp focus on AI. MI300 has some legacy segments parts into the design that takes care of high performance computing where you need high precision calculations, and high precision is essentially not what you need in AI. In AI you usually see 8-bit maybe 4 bits of a precision, whereas in high performance you are looking 32-bit or 64-bit precision. So I think that's tailor made of making a GPU that focusing only on AI. We're only gonna see that only on the MI350 and onwards, and that's when we will see AMD's first pure play AI GPU. And I believe that is when we're gonna see a revenue explosion for AMD, not to the same extent that Nvidia. They're not gonna go to tens of billions of AI GPU sales, but I would say that combining with their server CPUs, we might see 6 to maybe 8 billion of revenue on the data center on a quarterly basis. And how much does it end up in the bottom line? So my expectations are that, remember Q4 we had a 29 cents GAAP earnings per share and 1.9 cents non-GAAP. I believe that we're gonna see a, let's say 0.4, maybe 40 cents, 44 cents of GAAP earnings in Q1, and then a substantial increase in Q2 to 60, and another substantial increase to, let's say, 1.75. Now, you could say this is way too optimistic, potentially, but I do believe that we're going to see GAAP earnings per shares closing into 1 to 1.5. Now, going to this place here, Nasdaq, and we can see that the analyst expectations for their earnings for the up and coming quarters. And they have anywhere from 0.75, 0.82, 1, and 1.21, right? I think these numbers are non-GAAP based. But yeah, I think they are a little bit too conservative. Usually on AMD, they've been conservative. For the full year, they expect between 3.87 to 4.5. I think still it's a little bit too conservative. I would say I would likely see this between 4 to 5. And that is for this year's earnings, right? Maybe even a little bit higher than 5. And we are already almost in the second quarter of this year. So if your time frame is I don't know, at least 1 or 2 years, I wouldn't be surprised if the high estimates for the high forecast of estimations for their earnings per share for 2026. You can see the analysts believe like 6.29. I wouldn't be surprised if AMD beats that and comes in at 8. That means a forward PE ratio currently with the current stock price of below 100, maybe exactly 100, at a $8 earnings per share. We are talking about 10 to 12 price to earnings ratio, which is why I believe that this company should theoretically, if the AI boom continues, which I believe it will do, this is easily, in my opinion, at this kind of growth rate in terms of earnings per share, I think they should be at least $200 US dollar company. I don't understand why this company is so cheap. And I think it's gonna very soon be bottoming out, if not already has been done that, unless there's a huge market crash continuing, over the past 3 weeks and continuing again. But currently, I think this is a lot of companies out there are valuable. I don't think ARM is. I wouldn't invest in ARM at the current stage. I still think they're just, it's an interesting company. They have a lot of, this is an interesting chart here. You can see ARM that long term they're making around 50% of the current royalty revenue comes from the products that launched more than 10 years ago. That is crazy. They're making like half of their revenues based on stuff that came out more than 10 years ago. That is absolutely crazy, right? Well, again, the royalty revenue to be exact. So I think they have a business case. We know that ARM is gaining market share compared to x86. And in the long term, again, another play on ARM-based CPUs is Marvell. I mentioned Marvell Technologies. It's also taken a hammering over the past, let's say 2 months. Year to date, the company is down 35%. Over the 1 year time frame, 16%. It's been up quite substantially since, let's say, 2020. But yeah, the current market cap at around something like 60 billion. I'm just starting to make gap profitability, so I think this could be an interesting one as well, for sure. But when it comes to ARM, I don't think so. I think it could stay in a bubble stage, but I wouldn't want to invest in ARM at the current valuation. I think Micron is interesting. Micron is making memory. We know that memory is and memory bandwidth with high, HBM is very important for the AIs. AMD and Nvidia are gonna present and develop AI GPUs with much higher memory capacity. Going from like 90 gigabytes of HBM to 192, probably in the future to 56 to 88, and maybe half a terabyte, 512 in a couple of years time potentially. So Micron, I think with their new HBM stack, HBM3E, is gonna be really interesting. They're lowly valued as well, so I think currently Micron is also on my radar. And right now, I think finally there's a lot of opportunities out there, like in the AI and the semiconductor space. So currently, I think you can see that ARM's price target is at 179 according to TipRanks, and currently the price is at 125. Maybe people are putting a little bit of a higher valuation on ARM due to the nature of x86 in the long term losing market share to ARM based CPUs. So that could be part of the reason. But I think there's better options out there. Again, AMD I think is currently with the highest price target of 225, which is over 100% upside. I think that's more interesting. I think Micron is interesting, currently sitting at 136 price target, and the current price is at 92, and also Marvell. But I have to be honest, I haven't studied Marvell that deeply, so I think for my part, I would like to look into Marvell a little bit more, but currently I think there's a lot of better options compared to like 2 or 3 months ago. So for those who have money on the side, I think there's a lot of value to be gained right now. So anyways, that's gonna do it for today. My summary is essentially that, yeah, I think AMD is currently a bargain, to be honest. And long-term wise, maybe we have to find a time frame of a couple of years from now where maybe we have to start to exit AMD. I think if they double or triple in the stock price, market cap is around half a trillion. I do not see AMD in some of the business segments. Again, remember that AMD is some of the segments, the client, the gaming, and the embedded FPGA. those three segments, I don't see such a huge growth, to be honest. The gaming GPU market is contracting on a like units kind of term. People are happy with what the laptops are offering in terms of gaming performance. And sure, AMD is gaining market share in the gaming laptop market due to their APUs. But the problem is that I think there's going to be a lot of competition, very, very long term wise, in terms of Nvidia entering that laptop market and other players as well. Still think AMD is going to be in a very strong position, but I don't see like this 10x opportunity based on the client gaming and embedded FPGA. Maybe there's a software play for AMD down the road. I don't see that right now. I think Nvidia is closer to the potentially venturing into a little bit about like software and hence expanding their revenue, but not for AMD currently. So all hangs on the data center and specifically the AI GPU, and that is a potentially if they if they get like 30-40% market share, then for sure this company could easily 10x. No question about that. But that is like, is that realistic to believe? I don't know. So I think in the long term, my target right now for AMD is like maybe have an exit at 250 to 300 US dollar in a couple of years time if everything goes well, and try to find maybe if Marvell technology at the time is correctly valued, maybe look into that in the semiconductor space, or if ARM is offering better valuation. But right now, I'm very happy with AMD. So, anyways, thanks you for your time, and please like, subscribe, and engage in the comment section, especially about ARM and Marvell. What are you guys thinking about that? And yeah, see you in the next one.